Hi, my name is Mikko, and in this video I will go through Sitra's Megatrends 2023 report. The report provides a big picture view of the most significant changes of our time. We hope the report will bring understanding to this post-normal era of surprises. Now, one might ask, why amid all these crises and surprises should we pay attention to megatrends? Isn't the future too uncertain to be thinking about longer-term changes? Well, surprises do not come out of nowhere. They are driven by longer-term changes, megatrends. At the same time as solving acute crises, we must be able to build paths to better futures. To do that, it is important to understand the big picture of change and the interdependencies and tensions between current phenomena. Megatrends can help us gain insight into that big picture. Here is the big picture of change from Sitra's Megatrends 2023 report. We have looked at 5 key themes: nature, people, power, technology, and the economy. At the core of it all is the erosion of nature's carrying capacity and the continued urgent need for ecological reconstruction. At the same time, we see growing well-being challenges as changes in the operating environment influence people's daily lives. Geopolitical power struggles have returned with a vengeance, and the battle for democracy intensifies. We see also disputes about the ground rules of the digital world and its futures, meaning that competition for digital power gears up. The economic foundations are cracking as global inequality increases and the ecological sustainability crisis unfolds. By looking at the big picture, we can also see tensions and challenges between the megatrends, such as overconsumption, resource sufficiency, and the erosion of trust. The big picture of change might look bleak, but it is the reality of where we are now. However, it doesn't mean the future is doomed. The future is influenced not only by the present changes, but also by other factors, which is why we use the futures triangle to add depth to our examination of megatrends. The futures triangle is a framework developed by the futurist Sohail Inayatullah to outline the factors that influence the plausible future, namely the push of the present, the weight of the past, and the pull of the future. The push of the present focuses on the current changes. The previous big picture of change is all about the push of the present. The weight of the past is about determining how we got to where we are now. Understanding history helps us identify path dependencies and the impact of past decisions, as well as worldviews and mental models that we might want to let go of. The pull of the future covers images of the future, our dreams, visions, plans, and also fears and dystopias. These images are important to recognize as our assumptions about the future influence our actions in the present. With this framework in hand, let's examine the megatrends more closely. The erosion of nature's carrying capacity is at the core of the big picture of change. We are living in the midst of an ecological sustainability crisis. Human activity is pushing nature beyond its carrying capacity, threatening the very basis of our economy and well-being. There is a growing urgency for ecological reconstruction, a transition to a society that improves the state of nature and human well-being. The trends behind the ecological crisis are well known. The climate has already changed, and it is continuing to heat up. The loss of biodiversity is accelerating, and millions of species are threatened with extinction in the next few decades. Extreme weather events are becoming even more frequent. We see degradation of the seas and soil, and the list goes on. It is clear we cannot continue on this path. So, what prevents us from changing? What baggage from the past do we carry that we need to get rid of? One of the key barriers to change is the so-called illusion of inconvenience. This is the perception that the change we need is more difficult than it actually is. Change is also inhibited by having a mindset of trivializing the opportunities to influence things. Finland is not seen as a major international player, and sustainability solutions are not viewed as a source of competitiveness. And yet, Finland has everything it takes to be an international leader and set an example for others to follow. If we can overcome these obstacles, what might lie ahead? What kinds of futures are we currently imagining? One possible direction is ecological reconstruction. The BIOS research unit describes it as the set of changes in the physical infrastructure and societal structures that are needed to phase out fossil fuels. It is a matter of comprehensive change that also involves rethinking of values and paradigms. There are also views of the future based on the assumption that problems can be solved by technology. And of course, there is no lack of scenarios of collapse and crisis in which humankind is drifting inevitably towards destruction. A key question now is, how do we build a fair and sustainable world? There are solutions, but how well are we embracing them? Moving on to another theme, people. Here many of the trends are pointing towards growing well-being challenges. Many changes in Finnish society and worldwide challenge human well-being. The population is aging, diversifying, and becoming concentrated in growth centers. Mental health problems are increasing due to uncertainties related to working life and earning a living, and the ecological sustainability crisis, and the COVID-19 pandemic. And speaking of pandemics, the root causes haven't disappeared, and human activity is increasing the likelihood of widespread epidemics and pandemics. The ecological sustainability crisis and other ongoing transformations are also reflected in changes in working life, emphasizing continuous skill development. What prevents us from tackling these challenges? The weight of the past is often a question of mindset. Well-being is often approached in an individual-centered way. What if we would also look at the well-being of communities and even society at large? At the same time, we need to understand that human well-being is dependent on the well-being of nature. Moreover, social and health services are often seen as a cost when at best they are an investment that prevents more serious problems later on. Perhaps we can move forward with an image of the future focusing on holistic well-being. Instead of material and individual-centered approach to well-being, the emphasis could be on preventing problems and strengthening inclusion, community, and happiness. A very different future is painted by transhumanism. This seeks to overcome current human limitations through technology, for example, by making aging optional. It is essential for both Finns and Finland to consider how we can promote holistic well-being, one in which the well-being of people and the rest of nature increases and problems are tackled in a preventive way. The third megatrend is the intensifying battle for democracy. Democracies have been both weakened and strengthened by crises. Polarization, eroding trust, and geopolitical power struggles create the need to reform decision-making and strengthen democracy, participation, and citizen empowerment. The ecological sustainability crisis is intensifying the battle for raw materials and resources, and an orderly and harmonious transition towards a fairer and more sustainable world seems increasingly unlikely. Globally, the number of people living under authoritarian regimes has grown significantly in recent years. Democratic ideals and principles are being questioned, even in many well-established democracies. Influence through information is increasing due to actions taken by provocateurs inside countries as well as by international operators. Democracy is in need of reform. But what is preventing this reform? One of the key challenges is the lack of societal imagination. Societal visions focus on maintaining the status quo or countering threats. Political debate is dominated by short-termism and self-interest. Successive crises take away the space for a more forward-looking political debate. Vote fishing reduces the time span to election years, and self-interest is pursued narrowly, ignoring the bigger picture. What kinds of future do we face? Strengthening and reforming democracy is possible, and it is being pursued through many initiatives. The key is to strengthen trust, not only in institutions and decision-making structures, but also between people. New forms of influence, such as participatory budgeting, citizen panels, and the use of digital platforms, can strengthen both trust and participation. Reforming the structures of democracy is also worth focusing on at the global level. A very different image of the future is represented by the idea of an inevitable and historic transformation of our world where only the strongest survive. This view of the future envisages entrenchment and self-interest. While there is a need to take account of geopolitical tensions, there is also a need to reform democracy. The key question is, how do we strengthen trust and participation? The fourth megatrend is the intensifying competition for digital power. Technology is developing rapidly, and new technologies are being introduced in new areas of life. Increasingly more data is being collected and used to provide new customized services to individuals and organizations. Digitalisation affects nearly all industries, and artificial intelligence applications permeate society. The boundaries between the physical world and the virtual world are becoming blurred. There are high expectations for the future of the data economy, and the potential for growth is massive. Web 3.0 and decentralized solutions based on blockchain may pose a challenge to the power of the current players. As the amount and collection of data increases, so do the questions related to it. What does the data actually tell us, and how can we use it in a responsible way? Who owns the data and who has access to it? The data economy has grown quickly, but its regulation has been fragmented, ambiguous, and lagging. However, there is a growing awareness of the lack of rules, and the EU is making moves to tighten the legislation that governs the data economy. Another obstacle in the way towards a fair and sustainable digital world is the shortage of resources and skills. Devices and digital infrastructure require large amounts of energy as well as metals and other materials, the availability of which has emerged as an increasingly significant geopolitical issue. At the same time, we need new skills to build ethical platforms and fair and sustainable digital services. If we can overcome these obstacles, what kinds of future might we achieve? In a fair digital world, the power of the digital giants will be eroded, open interfaces will become more common, and the balance of power will become less tilted towards large corporations. A common technological image of the future is also a world of abundance, where technology has solved all the problems and led to a better world for all. The growing amount of data has also led to an emergence of dataism, which describes everything, including humans and societies, as data processing systems. The goal is to make data flow as efficiently and freely as possible, even if it means the end of privacy. The development of technology is a significant driver of future trends. At the same time, it is a factor that is rarely questioned. Technology is perceived to develop quickly, but the questions of who sets the direction of development and on what terms technology is adopted are given less attention. What kind of rules will we develop for the digital world? The final megatrend is that the economic foundations are cracking. Over the past few decades, people have accumulated wealth to an unprecedented degree. Increased wealth has led to increased well-being. At the same time, we increasingly recognize that this accumulation of wealth has been achieved at the expense of nature and future generations. And inequality has grown as wealth has become concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer people. Increasing extreme weather events and the collapse of ecosystem services are eroding the operating capacity of the economy. The ecological sustainability crisis challenges the economy to reform, and it has also broadened our understanding of economic capital. We are not only looking at euros or dollars, but also ecological and social capital. Natural resources, environmental quality, ecosystem services, well-being, skills, and social trust. Corporate responsibility has taken on an increasingly important role in recent years, and the focus of sustainability is increasingly shifting from managing the footprint to leaving a handprint, or shifting from harm reduction to having a positive impact. This shift is illustrated by the circular economy becoming imperative. However, the weight of the past is still heavy. Economic reform is inhibited by old ways of thinking and existing power structures. The economic debate is past-oriented, focused on crisis, and tends to measure economic development using conventional indicators. There is an inability to see new possibilities. The economy is also dependent on global value chains, although the pandemic and increased geopolitical tensions may usher in a new stage of globalization where more emphasis is placed on the security of supply, local economies, and resilience. So what possible futures have been outlined for the economy? There is currently no shortage of initiatives for a fair and sustainable economy. Some are geared towards a transition achieved through profound changes to the economic system, with emphasis on moving beyond growth dependency, while others emphasize market-driven tools for green growth. All in all, it is possible to move towards a restorative and regenerative economy, where the economy is used for restoring the damage that has already been done and regenerating the ecological and social capital needed as building blocks for the future. Bleaker views of the economy predict the end of the welfare society. Such views highlight recession, inflation, and unemployment. The question of how to transition from the current system to a new and more sustainable one is one of the most challenging questions with regards to the economy. There are many ideas out there, but how can they be put into action? How can we shift to a restorative and regenerative economy where positive impacts of the economy on the environment and people outweigh negative impacts? The future holds many opportunities, and it is important to better recognize them. In this picture, we highlight a few of the opportunities related to megatrends. There are, of course, also many more opportunities that are not mentioned here. The erosion of nature's carrying capacity can be addressed through ecological reconstruction. Sustainable lifestyles and investing in well-being can support holistic well-being. New ways of influencing and taking a transgenerational approach can strengthen trust and participation. Digital building, the digital green transition, and rules for the data economy guide us towards a fairer digital world. The circular economy and new approaches to economic thinking can create a stronger foundation for the economy of the future. Still, none of these positive outcomes will happen on its own. We need to take action towards them. In addition to focusing on opportunities, here are some tips for thinking about the future. The megatrends describe changes at a fairly general level, so it can be a useful exercise to interpret what the megatrends mean for you and your community. And in a time of surprises, we need to challenge old paradigms and let go of the weight of the past. At the same time, we should think about what kind of future we actually want to build. And is that idea shared by everyone, or are there different perspectives out there? Ultimately, what is most important is the action we take now. The future is made together. Along with the Megatrend report, we provide a lot of materials to aid in using the Megatrends and enhancing future thinking. Megatrend cards offer a playful way to work with the trends. We also offer canvases to help in interpreting the trends, and more tools for futures thinking can be found in the Future Makers toolbox. If you are interested in a workshop aimed to enhance futures thinking and change making, check out the Futures Frequency. All of these are freely available on the Sitra website. I wish you all better futures.